Today, Jennifer and I are here to help give your firm the tools you need to start, if you haven't already, or continue to develop a successful thought leadership program. Jennifer is going to kick off with a rundown of some of the latest actions your firm can take to improve its thought leadership program based on the newest information for 2017. And the second half of the presentation, I'll tackle several key metrics from Google Analytics that would be the most compelling pieces of data for your skeptical attorneys at your firm. You'll be able to pick out exactly the info that will get them interested and keep them engaged. So now I'd just like to introduce Jennifer Schaller, founder and managing director of the National Law Review.
Thank you, Nicole. What Nicole is going to do on the second part of the presentation is kind of pull you back from the abyss of Google Analytics. It's scary, it's freaky, there's more stuff than you could ever wade through. A lot of you may not be the folks who are actually pulling the reports, but if you know what information is available, you're in a far better position to get the information from the folks who are pulling the reports. We also use Google Analytics as a baseline because it is what most other analytics programs are used kind of based off of. So it's a good place to start as far as terminology. The other players tend to follow them. So the first thing we're going to start with is managing expectations and beginning with the end in mind. When you work with attorneys, it's all kinds of different expectations when they produce thought leadership. And I have two kind of complementary examples here. This is an article that was written about foreign textbooks that were being sold overseas and then re-imported into the US. And while it received phenomenal results, it got over 75,000 hits. It's the equivalent of putting up a billboard in a stadium. About 50% of the readership was international. A lot of the readership came from educational institution, and a good chunk of the links that were coming into the article were from social media or from people sharing it on blogs. So while it's a great result and something you'd want to share, if you didn't dig really deep into it, it would just look like an article that just had big numbers if you even were able to pull that out of Google Analytics. So the point of it is while it's a fantastic result, how many of those folks are at educational institutions or overseas are actually going to be buyers for McDermott Will's intellectual property practice? The next result is from a local Milwaukee law firm who wrote a series of articles, two articles on pop-up kiosks, the little things that are showing up in shopping malls and in stores, and just various issues related to them. And what we found is 80% of the traffic came from a link out of Specialty Retail Magazine, which is exactly in the wheelhouse of this intended audience. Though this article only received about 5,000 to 6,000 hits. So on black and white paper, it's going to look like less of a success, but if you dig deeper into your analytical information, it's really kind of a big score. Additionally, when you dig a little bit deeper, most of the readership was coming from retail organizations and cities that are around the Milwaukee area, like Madison, Wisconsin, and things like that. So I don't know which one is the right winning example for your attorneys, but if you don't have the information, you're not able to kind of position it in a way that will produce results or get enthusiasm for writing. Back there.
I just have a quick question. So you're able to tell that these readers are coming from Walmart, Crate and Barrel. How are you getting that granular?
She's going to get into that
Okay.
a little bit in the Google Analytics. But the short answer is if they have a server that's open, you can typically tell where the reader is coming from.
Okay.
So if they're browsing from home from Comcast, you're probably not going to be able to tell. If they're browsing from work, you should be able to tell who it is. Okay, big scary headline, big change in Google's first page search results. If you want to get all techie, the number of organic blue links is going away or going down. It's going down from 8 to 10. And what's driving that are things called universal or extended search results. And just to kind of go over what that means, when you do a search, things like, especially if you're doing anything like Ralph Lauren, couch throw, you're going to get retail results that show up. You're going to get photos that show up. You may get examples of things that people put on Pinterest. That's different than just the links that would traditionally show up or just the links that would traditionally show up for ads. Other examples are there's more of an emphasis on videos, maps, and news articles. So there's also a new thing called a direct answer box, which is showing up on roughly 11% of desktop searches. So that's the best place you could probably be because it's directly answering what the query that was put into the search engine. Other things that are coming up are knowledge graphs, which are the thing off on the side. If you look at them, they're visual. So one key takeaway here is you need to be having photos with pretty much everything you do to the extent you can, because you're not going to be able to make it into a lot of these changes because a lot of them are becoming far more visual based. And the other thing is on mobile, about 12% of the results, especially with like restaurants and resorts and local places, you're getting little kind of checkered boards up at the top, and that's relatively new as well. And again, they're visually based. So I just put up a couple different examples here. The examples I used, one thing that keeps coming through, and this has been an ongoing trend probably for the last 5 years, more of an emphasis on local. And by local, we don't mean like the local donut store. By local, we mean that if you're talking about a law that's happening in New Jersey, you need to make sure you get New Jersey in the title of your document and have it in there in your text regularly enough. So here, this is a search for New Jersey minimum wage. First thing that came up is a direct answer box, then the organic blue links, which would be what you traditionally expect to see 2 years ago, a year ago in Google. Then the next part is news, and if you notice, the news articles that are coming up are news articles that have photos associated with them. And then on the side is the knowledge graph. The knowledge graph, again, very visually based. In order to make it in there, you have to make sure that if you're a university or a place of interest, you have to have New Jersey somehow tied into your name, otherwise the search engine is not going to know to put you in there. And again, if you don't have an image associated with your particular article, it's going to be much tougher to get in there. So this is an example, and I used another example for local. One is just California changes to their marijuana laws. And the reason I brought this up is where the search boxes are showing up are in different places. So here, as opposed to the previous example, you can see the news is coming up higher, and then the direct answer box is below, and then it's going into the blue links. But if you look at most of the stuff that's including in the search, it has California, and it has the driving in the name or the title. So if you're not putting it in there, it's just not going to happen. And then I also used the example here of our lovely host, Drinker Biddle. On the side is what's called a map graph. And if you notice, it's showing the directions for the Chicago office. And I bring that up because I did this search in Chicago and printed the screen out from there. And it's a good kick in the behind if you're not doing it already, to be claiming your local office's results on Google, Yelp, things like that, so you can kind of make this result happen. Another thing I wanted to quickly point out about Google or about this page for Drink or Biddle is on the page they're owning most of the links that are coming up. So they're coming up first with their website, Wikipedia page, and other types of media that they would want associated with their name where they're controlling the message that's in there. The other thing is at the bottom, you'll see that this at the bottom of most of the search results, they give you alternate terms. This is a place if you're absolutely dying for keywords, it gives you other terms that Google would perceive to bring back the same results. So it's kind of a post-mortem, but it's another place to look for that information. So here, I use the National Law Review's first page results. The reason I did that is because I know how everything got there. And you can tell, again, it has a significantly or slightly different order than some of the other searches that we did. The first thing that came up is our website. The next thing that came up is our Twitter results. So Google is starting to take quite seriously people who are players in social media and using it to display on the first page results for that organization. Next thing that came up was news, then the organic blue links, and then again, the alternate terms at the bottom. So just real briefly, I can't go into everything related to SEO, but some of the key things that I can go into that are going to be borne out by the analytics results are the things that work with titles. It's the quickest and easiest thing to fix. One thing you can do, get a 38% increase average, is to have bracketed clarification. Google's putting a big emphasis on photos, on videos, so it's just including the little brackets at the end. I'll show you an example in a second of telling Google what it is. The other thing are including photos and who, meaning telling in the headline who you are talking about, where, what. We'll show some examples of that as well. With the photo, you need to include alternate text. Search engines can't figure out what a photo is, but if you give them alternate text, it helps them know and put it in the right spot in search results. Same thing if you're doing video. You need to include some sort of transcript. Google can't read a video, so if you give them a transcript, it gives them something to kind of wrap their arms around a bit. Also with infographics as well. So you need to have some sort of text in order for it to be helpful in search. So here's just the boring slide with a lot of information on it. Just some examples of the bracketed clarification. For headlines, I've seen over probably the last 6 years that firms have gotten a lot better with this, but we still see headlines that come in. The example is court refuses to reconsider bifurcation order. What court, for what company? You need to keep your headline short, but it's not giving a search engine or even a reader enough to kind of get their arms around to know what that's about. If you're talking about cities or states, please make sure you get that in there. It's also a good way for local media to be able to pick up or to link to your story, especially also in your social media. If you use the local hashtag, it gets a lot of pickups that way. Short versions of case names, we see headlines coming in. I'll point the finger at the intellectual property people, where they'll include the entire case name with the site and the court. That's not making for a good headline, but case names are important because people do use them in search, and if you can get it down and skinny. A circuit may be important if it's something that you're writing to other attorneys and they want to know something that's specifically a big deal in the Fifth Circuit. Legislation names or abbreviations, if you can get that in there, again, you're just helping people find the information that they need. And also try to be ultra specific in your headlines. If you use numbers like 10 ways to update your calendar for following up with clients, or if you put a deadline in there, June 1st deadline for new immigration form. It creates a sense of urgency. So after I just told you all the stuff that you have to do with headlines, I'm telling you have to keep it short. After 65 characters, it gets cut off. For a long time in Google Webmaster Tools, and it's still going on, though it's disputed how big of a deal it is. You'll get penalized if your title tag on your homepage is too long. So if you need to have the important stuff in there, but you need to keep it brief. And the way you do that is you keep your most important words at the front. So if you're going to do a typical style for writing a headline is to have some sort of hook. So keep your most important words that you would want the search engine to know about I-9 form. Keep that at the front, and then, you know, time for employers to get smart on it, that can be towards the end, because if it gets truncated off, it's not as big of a deal. Asking questions, that's a great way to, again, get a nice hook in there. And don't ask what if or how. Phrase it in a way that would be relevant to a business author. And there's been some research, but it's not scientific by any way, shape, or form, that by asking the questions, you're more likely to end up in that little answer box at the top. There's anecdotal evidence. Google's not giving away their secrets, but there's all kinds of speculation if you read the search engine blogs on that sort of thing. Here I'm going to give you a big scary table, but I love it because it basically goes over all the important things in search engine optimization, and I've never seen it all kind of pulled together before with definitions and weighting. So really all I did was just briefly touch on headlines, but the bottom line is most of these things are information that that Nicole's going to be able to pull out of Google Analytics, and it just kind of gives you a nice overview of how all the things work together. So you can't just focus on one or two. You kind of have to be playing on a lot of different levels. And with that, I will pass it off to Nicole.
Thanks, Jennifer. So this slide, you can actually probably find it online pretty easily. Don't try to get what you can from it. It's search metrics, Jennifer? No.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I believe the slides will be made available to you after the presentation, and if you want to ensure that, please come give me your business card and I'll make sure that you get them from me. But, okay, so, I mean, even though you just touched on titles, you still gave a wealth of information on tweaks that you guys can make to your headlines as your attorney writes them. And so I'm here to kind of show you how you can get at least the most information you can out of Google Analytics that will be important to your attorneys. So this may come as no surprise to any of you, but the number one prevailing personality trait that differentiates lawyers from members of the general public can anyone take a guess for a drink at Starbucks? Number one personality trait that separates lawyers from the general public. What happens in this room stays in this room.
And we're both lawyers, by the way.
Oh,
so.
that's true, yeah. So you won't hurt my feelings.
Insult away.
No. Okay, I'm going to, Valerie? True, but not the number one. I'm gonna give it to you. What's your name? Irina. I'm gonna give it to you because the number one personality trait that makes people different, lawyers different from everyone else, is skepticism. So Dr. Larry Richards, I believe, a psychologist and former litigator, has been studying attorneys for 20 to 30 years, and he has found that attorneys score 30 to 40% higher on this trait than pretty much everyone else. So that means you all have an uphill battle when it comes to getting your attorneys engaged in thought leadership. So lawyers, what they're going to need is evidence that thought leadership works. Thanks, Jennifer. That thought leadership works and that you can continue to use data and information to keep improving it. So I'm going to go over a few core metrics that you can extract from Google Analytics that if you don't already know how to do this already, or if someone else is just running reports for you, hopefully you'll be able to take away from this the ability to just kind of go in and poke around yourself. If you aren't looking at the analytics yourself, you can at least ask someone for these particular metrics. And how many people here have a thought leadership program in place at their law firms already? People writing, attorneys writing, I assume you? Okay, great. Well, this is just for the folks who are having a little bit of hard time trying to get people writing. And you might be asking, if you don't have anyone writing, how do I get this data? Well, what you need to do is identify the thought leadership champion at your firm. Pick out 1 or 2 attorneys who have shown that they understand the value of thought leadership, at least understand it, and who have the best history of following through with new initiatives, and then get them involved. Ask them to write so you can measure these metrics from their articles, and then you can share them with other attorneys. I don't know if you've heard about this either, but attorneys are very competitive. So if they see that their colleagues are writing and that they are getting extra exposure from this writing, then they're gonna wanna get in on the action as well. So tap into that competitive nature of your attorneys. So we'll go ahead and dive into some of the nitty-gritty stuff. I divide the metrics that I'm going to give you into 2 different categories. First, metrics that quantify the success of what's already existing. And then second, metrics that will help inform how you tweak your thought leadership strategy going forward to make sure everything improves, gets better, and keeps going smoothly. Now, it's important that attorneys know that both of these things can happen, because it shows them that thought leadership is a strategy with longevity. They won't be sacrificing the almighty billable hour for an endeavor that doesn't have a strategy for sustainability and improvement. So when you log in, I'll start with this then. It's not your fault if you've ever logged in and taken a look at it and been completely mystified by what's going on in there. Google Analytics was not designed for law firm websites. It was not designed for legal publication websites. It was designed for everybody. And what that means in a lot of ways is that there are a lot of extra things in there that help bury the important information that you need. So I'm just assuring you that if you've ever been confused by it, it's absolutely not your fault. And hopefully I'm here today to help dig you out of any sort of mess of data that you might be lost in. And it's actually why we use a little bit. We have Google Analytics for our website, but for our client-facing analytics, the ones that our clients use, we use a different system because it's a lot more user-friendly. But we definitely use it to track our success as well. So it's not your fault. When you log in, the first thing you always want to do is set your date range. I honestly forget to do this sometimes, and I don't realize it until I'm already digging through. But you're going to want to take a look, narrow down the field of the data to whatever date range you want to examine. So typically by month, by week, or if you're looking for analytics on a specific article, maybe from the time the article was published to today, make sure you set that first before you dive in. Okay, so this first group of metrics can be found under the behavior section of the analytics. What you're going to see here, when you log in, it'll be the left side toolbar. My pointer doesn't work on screen, so I'll just point at it. So under the behavior section, if you click through overview, you can find information about the unique page views for your page and the time spent on page. Now, unique page views are the number of times a single user has accessed your content in a single session. So one user accessing your content 5 times within a single session is one unique page view. Okay? And a session is defaulted to 30 minutes. Google Analytics already sets this at 30 minutes for you, but you can change it from as short as 1 minute, which I don't honestly think is that practical, but for as long as 4 hours. But it's already set at 30 minutes. Now, this is the most basic indication of success of an article. All of your attorneys are going to ask, how many reads did my article get? But it's really important to be able to look at the time spent on page because it tells you who's actually sitting and reading your content. So what we're looking at here is that overview page again. And on the right side, you'll see a list of URLs, which typically your articles will float to the top because they're being searched for more, or sometimes you'll see your homepage, other pages.
Author pages.
Author pages. You'll identify the article, and when you actually click through, it gives you a page that offers other statistics on that particular article. So this article is called NLRB ruling regarding T-Mobile USA, something like that. Oh, it's probably one of the ones where there was a hook at the beginning, but we reversed it. You can't make me be positive was in the title, but it looks like we probably reversed that. So here you'll see the unique page views and the average time spent on page. Now, if the average time spent on page for this article was 3 to 5 seconds, people probably aren't sitting there digesting it. But you can tell your attorneys, oh, this article got 5,200 reads, and that actually means reads, typically. And it would help them overcome the notion that people are just sitting there and clicking and not actually digesting what they've written.
4 minutes is really good for the amount of time for somebody to spend on a page.
I would say even like a minute, 45 seconds to skim is pretty good based on what we've seen in terms of engagement. People will get the information that they need relatively quickly, especially since they're looking for it. So that's unique page views and time spent on page. You can tell your attorneys how well their content is doing by that. Now, the second metric is in the audience section. You can identify who is looking at your content by geographic location. Let's take a look. Audience, overview, and under the geo dropdown, click on location. Again, you'll get these slides, so you can, hopefully it'll be clear on the printouts, but you should be able to see them then. So this information helps you answer the question, are you reaching your target audience? You can see who's reading your content, by geographic location. And when you log into this page, Google is going to bump you to country. If you see where it says set view to city, right next to it, it says country. That's what's going to populate right away. It's probably more impactful for you at your firms to click over to city so that you can see how well your content is resonating throughout the country. If your firms are, sorry, go ahead.
And it also will pick up places like London and Dusseldorf. So, those are a little more significant than with most firms that we're speaking to and domestically. It's going to be US based, but with some European or Asian.
Yeah, so if you're writing on the latest, beverage tax coming out of New York City, you want to make sure that your content is actually being read in New York or something going on in Philadelphia. So you'll see here we have engagement. This is engagement by popularity. So first city, New York, second, Washington. And I just want to point out, you'll see this sometimes in the analytics. Number 4, it says not set. That is not something that unfortunately we and probably you are unable to control for. Google doesn't allow, if somebody wants to mask their location by using an incognito window or a private window on their browser, then we aren't able to tell. Google is not going to record where their location is. And so that's why you see not set in some of the data. Don't fret, it's not your fault. And as you can see, there's lots of other actionable data. You can see where other people are coming from despite that. But I just want to let you know when you see something like that, that's what it means. Okay, so then another way to take a look at your audience is checking out what companies and networks are reading your content. Jennifer elaborated on this earlier with that article at the beginning with Specialty Retail Report. I think the woman in the back asked the question, like, how do you know where these people are coming from? Well, if they're accessing your article, your content on their network, we'll be able to see this here, and if it's not being masked by the user. So if you click under Technology and Network, it will take you to a screen that looks a lot like this. So you'll see the numbers start at 48 here. That's because a lot of what shows up at the top, they're going to be communications companies. People reading your content on their phones or in their home networks. That's how people get their news. That's how people are looking for things. But if you actually go through the list, you can identify different companies and organizations that are accessing your content. So on that other slide, we could tell that people from Walmart, was it Safeway, Bank of America.
Municipalities, we're looking at the article that was written out of Milwaukee and near Milwaukee kind of places.
So if you click on the service provider, in this case I've highlighted the Securities and Exchange Securities and Exchange Commission. It'll get you more information about what people are doing on your website at the Securities and Exchange Commission. So in total, for the date range that I've selected, there were 325 unique page views from the Securities and Exchange Information Commission. Sorry. And when you click through, you'll see that people at the Securities and Exchange Commission are reading more than one article on our website. So it tells you that 30 people read that first article, 23 people read that second article. So you have to set the secondary dimension where I've highlighted at the top. You have to set it to page to force out these links here. And you can see what articles are being read at this particular organization. And let's see. The next set of metrics falls under the acquisition section. So here, we'll find out who has cited to your content on their website and how much traffic is coming from that particular link. This is relevant to skeptic attorneys because once your content has been cited to, particularly by a reputable third-party service, it's been deemed an authoritative piece of information. They're going to want to know that SCOTUS blog cited to their content. They're going to be excited about that. They're going to want to get cited again by SCOTUS blog, Forbes, or I think one at Regulatory Affairs. I'm trying to think of what I see on the regular for our clients.
We get like picked up by the government delivery service, so that's why like we had the results with the SEC. A lot of the stuff goes through the federal government agencies. So when they see that, it tends to be kind of an exciting thing.
So part of the opportunity for having a thought leadership program is an opportunity to get noticed by other people. So this is a way for you to tell your attorneys, hey, people are noticing. So under that left side toolbar, acquisition, all traffic, and referrals. When you click here, it'll give you a list of where your content has appeared on the internet besides your site. So you'll see here that we've got links to slipdisc.com, but also SCOTUS blog, Insider NLRB, which is the NLRB intranet, and then Huffington Post at the bottom. But let's take a look at the Today's General Counsel link here. When you click through, you'll get a similar page as the one that I showed you for the ISP, where you can actually get information about how many people click through to particular articles on your page. So in this instance, when I clicked through, it showed me that there were actually 3 links to our website from the Today's General Counsel. And you can see links to these are the links to the General Counsel page. And when you click on the box that I showed you, it'll actually bring up where the link exists. So this is a way for you to be able to track, okay, who's checking out our stuff, who's citing to us.
And how they're citing to you.
Mm-hmm. So, and then for each of the pages, you can see how much traffic is being brought in for those particular links. Okay, so I think that goes over a few of the metrics that I wanted to show you to quantify the success of your already existing content. So this is content that already exists, and you can tell your attorneys, hey, it's doing great, or hey, there's some, actually the next part is talking about where you can improve or continue to grow your strategy. But we went over, let's see, unique page views and time spent on page, location of readers based on both company and geographic location, as well as who has been linking to your content. So now that we're able to show that your existing content has been successful, let's take a look at the metrics that will convince attorneys you can continue to use data to improve your strategy. So I'm just checking time here. Okay. So under the audience section, we were able to track the location and company of the readers. You can also use the same information to tailor your future writings. This is just kind of a placeholder of something that you've already seen. But if you're seeing that people from a particular geographic location are reading your content more, you can tailor your future writings to that. Let your attorneys know, hey, we're really popular in New York. Are there any, is there any interest in business in New York? And do you have any, here are some topics that you can write on that people are looking at in that particular geographic area.
Or also, too, if it's a smaller area than New York, say Springfield, Illinois, you're getting a lot of traffic. It might not be a bad idea to then maybe take it to the next step to think of that location for hosting like a lunch and learn or something like that. If you have sort of a groundswell of enthusiasm in a particular place.
So if attorneys know that you have this information and that you can use it to grow their business either by, thought leadership, doing a lunch and learn, that's all part of a thought leadership strategy, then, they might be more inclined to be on board because you can show them that it works. Now, under the referral section, I just showed you where you can see who's been citing to your content. With this information, you can also tailor your future content. If a citation in a specialty retail law report brought in lots of targeted traffic, then you can write on specialty retail again. And since they've already cited to you, it's an opportunity for you to go out to that particular, or reach out to that particular publication or website, thank them for citing to you, and then offer them further information with another article or a call or something like that. It helps open doors, and taking a look at who's been citing to you through your analytics actually helps get your foot in the door that way. And then also under the referral section, in that same list, you may have seen, this is a list I showed you earlier. There are also social media sites on that list. So you'll see here the number one link to our content is the mobile Facebook app, it looks like. Now, this information gives you an idea of which social medium works best for your content. That way, your firm can expend the appropriate amount of time and energy into the care and maintenance of that particular account. You can track what kind of articles also work well with a particular channel. So if your energy law content is doing better on LinkedIn, then you can focus more efforts on LinkedIn for that particular area. Or if your blog posts gain any traction on Facebook, you can continue to build your Facebook presence. One thing I wanted to share with everyone is that, so Facebook here is number one on our list, but over the last 18 months to 2 years, I've seen an enormous increase in Facebook engagement for our website. So I wanted to share that because that's something that is not traditionally seen as a vehicle for, legal thought leadership.
Yeah, we're all business law all the time, so
not terribly
it's
exciting.
Not exactly what you would put together with Facebook.
But I think we've seen an engagement in Facebook due to a few things. Well, first, we are being active in making sure that all of our content has a picture. It sounds silly, but if it's not in text, we'll associate it with the article so that it appears with a photo on our homepage as well as an open graph on all of our social media. Yes? Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, just stock photos. No. I mean, it's silly. I mean, I know it's tough and legal to get beyond the gavels and the law books and all that, but just any sort of relevant photo. The studies that have actually been done on it don't focus on the photo. It just has to be a photo. So an easy way to get around that if you're on a tight budget is like Big Stock does promotions for like a month. You can get a month free and 5 photos a day. So you're starting out with 150 photos right there. And a month, I'm not plugging for them, but a monthly subscription's like $75. So it's not an undoable cost thing to add to your articles. I'd be very careful, not to just scrape photos off of other things. You are a law firm, so you can't really say, oh, we didn't know. But it's pretty reasonable to obtain stock photos if you need to.
You don't have to invest a lot in order to get a lot of traction from just adding a photo. I'm sure you've heard this at many other events, like photos. There's no point in posting anything unless you have a photo associated with it. But I can tell you that, anecdotally, like it worked for us. It's something that we've seen on our website. And then also, if you think about, Twitter as a social media is never going to go away, but as a company, it's already experiencing.
Well, especially thank you to Donald Trump. It was kind of on the decline, but he's breathed a new life into that medium.
And we still get tons of Twitter engagement, but the overall sort of issue with Twitter is that it's a lot of noise. It's a lot of noise. So Facebook some might call this an issue, but you surround yourself with people that think and are interested in the same things as you, and it's easier and more friendly to take a look at. So that's something that you might want to consider. But hey, if you go in here and your firm is doing phenomenal with engagement on LinkedIn, that's where you focus your energy on. But this information is here along with who else is citing to you under the referral section. So I wanted to make sure that you guys knew that this is a good way to track that. But yeah, Facebook has been a real big surpriser. And I think I've been saying for about 12 months that, yeah, I can't believe it's blown up for us. But yeah, so it's just something to think about when you're pushing your content out there. And the next, so this is under the referral section again. But then under the acquisition section as well, you can go under search engine optimization and queries and take a look at what keywords people are using in search to get to your content. Now there's that not set again. Ironically, we are on Google Analytics, but Google doesn't allow people it doesn't release what people search for on their platform. So
Limited does.
Yeah, it's just
Extremely limited.
And most of the information that you're seeing here are keywords that people ran through other search engines. So, Bing, Yahoo. I have learned that DuckDuckGo is a search engine. So on all these other search engines, what are people using?
I thought that usually was the keywords that people are searching for, but only if you use like Google AdWords or a paid tool like that.
And I think that's what Jennifer is referring to, but it's actually not released to the people, not the users. It depends on the people that are doing the searches.
Yes.
So
I have more in my back.
basically Chrome has privacy baked into Chrome.
Yeah.
So if you're doing an organic search, you're not going to get it. If you click on an ad, you're going to get the term from your ad. So there's that relationship there. So if it's coming through an ad, you can see more of that data than that organic search.
Thank you. So you're still able to see some of the keyword searches for on other search engines, and then as well with Google. But I think no matter where it comes from, it's important to know what people want. And this list shows you what's popular for what's being searched on your website. There are also keyword research tools out there, but I'm just kind of talking about what's available in Google Analytics. And the ability to do this is important to attorneys because it lets them know that you can figure out where they should land, that you can let them know where your content has landed successfully in search and what to include and what to write on later. It's a little bit of fortune telling that goes into it, but I mean it's strategy, really. It's strategy. But if your attorneys know that you have a strategy and that you can use this, then they'll be more inclined to get on board again. So if you rank higher for some search terms than others, in this case for us, Visa Bulletin was the highest search term for this particular date range, then you can write on it more. You can, if you're looking week by week, you can say, okay, what was hot last week? Should I continue to push content on that particular topic? Should I follow up with whatever I wrote with before? Should I move on to something else because it's no longer relevant? Those are the types of inferences that you can make by looking at the keywords on a periodic basis and sending them to your attorneys to let them know what they can write on, or what they should write on, rather. But okay, so all the data I just showed you is available live. You log in, you can customize your date range and click through and find this information like I showed you. But based on my experience, my clients typically want reports. It's easier that way. I rarely have clients go in and dabble in their analytics. They just want a periodic report. And thankfully, Google actually makes that fairly easy to do simple reports. Let's take a look here. So it's important to have a report that you can get that concrete information to attorneys. You can see that you are actually using a tool to measure their content's effectiveness and success. So let's go back to that first metric, behavior. Same thing that you saw earlier, where to find it. And this is the same page I showed you earlier with the articles in the bottom right corner. But at the top under overview, I've highlighted it here. You see export, and it gives you options for what format makes the most sense for you. All you have to do is pick an option, download it, and it will create like a nice looking report for you. that you can share on a periodic basis. Again, you can schedule reports to come out automatically every month. That is something we, for our platform, we do for our clients. But again, if you want to do them weekly, if you want to check in at any time, you just set the date range and then create a report for that particular, time frame and for that particular metric. And you can customize reports, but that's something that we do not have a lot of time to talk about today. But I just want to let you know that that is something that is simple and available for you in Google Analytics. Now, the key to getting attorneys' interests in thought leadership is continuing to bring this data to the table. So make sharing these reports, all this information, like high profile and high priority. It doesn't have to be, a half-hour presentation. It could just be 5 minutes at a meeting, calling people out and letting them know, hey, this is done well. Hey, maybe we should write something else on this. It'll keep attorneys engaged and focused if you talk to them about it on a regular basis. You can also choose to share that information with other attorneys. I encourage that because, again, they're competitive. So if they see that their colleagues are doing well and getting results and moving the dial, then they're going to want to get in on the action. So at an intellectual property meeting, let them know that a series that the labor and employment meeting, if it's an opportunity that you have, a series that the labor and employment practice has done was met with great success. And a lot of times that will spur other attorneys to get interested and get involved. I think by now all of you sitting in this room know that developing a thought leadership program is imperative to your firm's marketing success. And sitting at the very center of these programs are the ultra skeptical people, more skeptical than people in the general public. So presenting them with evidence that it works, like I've shown you for Google Analytics, and that you can continue to use this data to track and improve their progress or improve their strategy, that it will be the most compelling evidence to get these skeptical attorneys on board. And once they are on board, you can use the data and the information that Jennifer, shared with you to help them tweak their content and make sure that it's, fully optimized for the internet of today. But yeah, so that's all we had for today. Just wanted to go over some of the latest trends and some of the things in Google Analytics that are available to you.